People, Deluded, I'm back again. Now, there's been a lot of speculation and there's a lot of talking points in relation to Arsenal and Arsenal manager. I've brought out several vids. I'm sure you've watched them vids, or I hope you have. I'm sure you've got your own opinion and you've indulged content from other platforms and medias. So we've all said our opinions. We don't need to sit here and go through them. Clearly, we know Emery has not got the credentials. Decision has to be made. But what we should do is just go over media reports, really. The first one that gets me is the Mail claim Emery is facing criticism because of his decision to cut Arsenal's live scouting of opposition teams in favour of presiding over a video-led model approach himself. Now that one annoys me because not necessarily because of how he's ditched it. It's because when I read the article further, allegedly it more or less sounds like he's getting rid of opposition scouts and whatnot because he wants to do it himself. And I think that's so wrong, purely because you look at Pep Guardiola, him and his assistant, I can't remember the name, but it's in one of his autobiographies. They would watch the game together and then they watch the game alone, purely because everybody sees different things. And I believe no matter how smart you are, you've got to surround yourselves with different opinions and different, equally, people that are experts like you, allegedly, because they will see different things. I always tell you, lot in football, there's many different subconscious and conscious biases we're looking for, whether that's trying to sign players, whether we like players, whether that's managers, whether that's the team. These sort of things play a part in your ability or inability to look at things and get the victory over your opponent. Potentially, is that why we're missing so many glaring problems? Well, we're going into games and knowing what an opposition does, and then they're going and doing it and we're acting shocked. So is he missing things? You also have to question the ability of his analysis. Now, Emery, he's obviously won 3 Europa Leagues. He's got a pedigree as a manager. It's almost admirable how he goes over by himself. Literally, it said hours of footage on his laptop of watching games and whatnot. And I hear that, but especially when you're managing a certain club, you've got to be able to delegate. It doesn't matter how good you are as a manager, you have to be able to trust people around you. And obviously, if you're dedicating all your time to that, how much are the players suffering because we're not putting extra emphasis on improving us tactically? Are you paying so much time to the opposition on top of, based on this, that we're not looking at what we can do to get at people? You can't do everything, you can't improve everything at once. You need to utilise the squad and other individuals. I'm not saying that Emery, he shouldn't look at games himself, because he should on top of stuff, but you might miss something. You might miss, I don't know, you might not have necessarily picked up on the fact of they score a high percentage of goals in the last 10 minutes, or they're one of the highest scorers for set pieces. You get it? Someone else might pick up on these things, and all of these things you've got to be able to pattern up on, in my opinion, people. Looking at it though, apparently back in 2018, he gave an interview to a Catalonian paper in relation to his obsession with studying the opponent and video sessions. He's more or less said on claims that his sessions are boring and sleep-inducing. He said, "If not everyone listens, I couldn't give a fuck." This is his language. "Because if there's just one player tuning into me, 100% that's the reason enough for me to give the session." And I mean, in theory, that's good. But if one player's taking on your information and the other 10 aren't receptive, you're going to potentially get where Arsenal are getting, is that consistently inconsistent, don't know the fabric of the team, don't know your blueprint for the opposition, or what we want to do against the opposition ourselves, people. I didn't read out the quotes, but a lot of this love for him came out of watching a Segunda game, I believe, a Spanish Segunda second division game, in which you keep hearing Emery frequently watches them people. Apparently, Raul Sanllehi and Edu held crisis talks with Emery in the tunnel area following the 2-2 draw. Apparently, we all know that's come out of the Daily Mail now. We all know allegedly Emery is facing criticisms and facing serious pressure. The length of the talks, we don't know. I can't imagine in the tunnel, considering the game's just finished, players are around, emotions are still strong. I can't imagine there was too much of an in-depth talk and too much of a talk over his future. It probably was just reiterating, yo, this is a mess. And you are hearing people of the dressing room, in not only the dressing room but the boardroom, have lost faith in Emery, and it's causing divisions. And it leaves you worried. This season is clearly a write-off. We're not going to get top 4. We've missed out on a lot of financial potential from getting in the champs, and we're probably missing out on some players. But what's more concerning is that we've got to look at the next 3 to 4 years ahead and look at what we're doing in the next transfer market and things like that. And if everybody's fractured at all levels, how can a club move in one central direction? Opposing opinions is fine, but there's one collective mission, and I can't say it looks, as a fan looking inside at my club, that's clearly the case. Now, Raul is allegedly the one backing Emery, and I like Raul Sanye. I was gassing him when he came. Knows the South American market, got the contacts. We're even got a better relationship with agents now. Extensive contact book. Someone that doesn't mess around, and he's a gentleman, but he makes choices. Praised him for his business, but now the same energy that we used to praise him, we've got to be looking at these guys and saying, okay, without knowing everything, because you might be looking. We hear he's looking for managers and he's contacting people and he's doing things, but we have to question, like, on the face of it, what are you doing? Because the longer Emery is allowed to be in this role, the damage is there. It wouldn't. I still don't think we'll get Champions League, but would it honestly surprise you lot, regardless of if it was Pochettino, Allegri, an unknown manager with the credentials, or any realistic or unrealistic thing? Would it surprise you if any one of their managers took the game against Norwich, and you'd see an instant improvement in the team? That's nothing to do with Arsenal players. You see that there'll be a spring in the step. How many times have you seen that over the years, people? Tell me I'm lying. Something needs to change. And for me, the only thing we can gain from this season is, clearly, I believe personally, we've lost Lacazette and or Aubameyang. Both of them, or one of them is definitely going. The longer Emery stays and they become disillusioned and question not just his tactics, but where the club's going, how many more players are we going to lose? How many more agents are going to say they want out? We already, just based on reports, we face the prospect of losing Lucas Torreira. Whether you believe in these players, Ozil, Torreira, Sabas is going back on loan. Xhaka, I don't rate him, but he's played frequently. Aubameyang, Lacazette, and all of these other star players. Whether they're star players you don't necessarily agree with, these are players that play on a regular basis. So the team is going to be torn up. I think Xhaka should go. Sabas is obviously going by default, and Ozil is past him, and he won't be given a renewed deal. But we're going to have to rebuild the team again, and the players that we can consider part of the rebuild, are they going to want to stay here? Are players going to want to come in? Because I always tell you, lot, the summer business, obviously moves happen in the summer, but you don't think clubs are dotting I's and crossing T's and agreeing moves for man that are going to move to mine and your club in May or the summer and whatnot. These deals are being done now. While we're all watching Champions League or at work, people are having dinner and whatnot. And how many players are saying, yo, listen, Arsenal's a good club, I respect you and that, but I don't know I don't know what going for your manager, and I don't know what the team's on, and I don't know if Lacazette and Aubameyang, your two-star players, are going to stay there. So why am I going to come here? Do you get what I'm saying, people? It'll make no sense for me to come here if there's bare question marks over your thing. In relation to Aubameyang and Lacazette, obviously we risk losing both of them. Apparently they want to leave if Emery remains the manager. Obviously we've been trying to get deals in relation to negotiating deals, but they've been both reluctant to commit their futures as long as they can't buy into what Emery's done. The club is going different ways, and they keep hearing noise about other moves, people. It is what it is. Finally, people, I saw this, and I don't know how true. Apparently it will cost, I ain't got the breakdown, but apparently in total, when you consider Emery's package and all his people, them and whatnot, if he was to sack him now, it would cost 15 million, which is a big sizable chunk to eat for Kroenke and whatnot, who don't necessarily care for winning and things like that. You 15 there, you'd obviously have, we hear 45 for missing out in the Champions League. So just as a direct result of failing on the field, we could lose out on 60 million. Do you get what I'm saying? That's why on the field is imperative. If you have a good football team, everything else comes. The commercial comes. If you play well. Now, we seem to fail to understand that. Kroenke seems to fail to understand that. Apparently, we'd have to pay at least 4 million in compensation if we was to sack him before the end of the season. That's also not including the payoffs that his backroom staff and people he's brought in would get as well, people. It's a delicate situation, clearly, people. There's no rights and wrongs. There's, on one hand, probably Arsenal might have to go through several misappointments before they get it right. Many people say, we don't want to be like United or have it to be a revolving door, and I don't either. But there's no assurances. Just because we get another manager does not mean it's going to be a success in the same way Emery comes. Hopefully we can take our time, do our due diligence, get someone that is more stronger in what they want to do, has a stronger way of implementing what they want to do, able to allow the players to buy into what they want to do, and is able to, so we can say when he comes here, you've been here 2 months, we don't expect you to be perfect, but what are you trying to introduce? You've been here 6 months, okay, we see what you're saying. You've been here a year now, okay, you've improved us defensively, maybe we need to go out there and get a right back and a centre half and all of these things. Then you can sit here and say them comments when the system is there. If we get this and get that, we know we need a defender, by example, people. But you could sign the best defender in the league, Van Dijk, and we'd still have the worst defence. Why? Because as great as Van Dijk is, his quality would still show. Do you think Van Dijk could defend to the level he can if first and foremost Klopp didn't make sure his players understood defending properly? Now, their defensive stats aren't as good as last season, but the whole team has improved defensively. They press from the front. The midfield protects. The fullbacks, both fullbacks are aware of each other's jobs. Both fullbacks, they all shuffle across and whatnot. Matip's form. The goalkeeper behind them, Alisson, marshalling it. They're all part of a well-organised system. Where versus at Arsenal, if you look at Koscielny when he was in his prime, completely different to Van Dijk, but just looking at the fact of a standout centre-half in either side, Koscielny was more thriving because it was like there was fires going on and he was a firefighter putting in tackles, saving everybody, rather than him necessarily, and I'm not saying he wasn't quality at the time, but rather than his quality necessarily showing through, it's just because everybody else is poor. So that's what we need, and that's what I believe in, because I don't believe in Emery. He's clearly smart. He's clearly a good manager. Like he's just not the manager for this club. I think he's a good manager, but he's just not this. He's not strong principled enough. He's not strong enough in his convictions of his plans. Clearly unable to effectively communicate whatever his plans are. So that means you haven't got this. You haven't got a leg to stand on. Many people, everybody wanted Emery to do well. Who wanted Emery to fail? Still, people have hope that he turns around. I have hope that Arsenal turn around because as a fan, I want to be in the top 4. But I don't believe Emery is the man to spark that, people. So something needs to change, and the talk that's going to keep coming this week isn't going to be promising, people. This is what's going to happen, and it's here to stay. On that note, though, I've got to get to work. Sadly, after earning 11, I can't do football YouTube videos full time. I wish I could. But on that note, thank you for persisting with my thing. Deluded, I'm out. Comment, subscribe, check out the Deluded podcast, link in the description. New episode out now. Check out all my platforms in the description. All my socials are there. Deluded Gooner 04 and everything. Gooner 04 and Snap. It's been a pleasure speaking to you lot, and it's been a pleasure that you lot mess with all my content, whether it's scouting, Arsenal, DG thoughts, or just me in general. It means a lot. People, have a blessed day. God stay with you. Make sure you handle your business and you just return home to your families and whatnot safely. On that note, DG, God bless.